And welcome to the webinar. Our webinar this morning is going to be on customer service. So we're going to go ahead and get going. All right, you should all be able to see my screen now. So customer service refers basically to anybody with whom you have contact with to ensure that quality services are being provided. So who are our customers? And you can see the list here. And it's individuals, families of individuals, guardians, advocates, beads, coworkers, supervisors, admin staff, provider staff, state agency personnel. Everybody is our customer. So literally anyone you talk to. If you were out doing a transition fair and someone walks up to the table, that's a customer. Anyone we have that interaction with. So developing good working relationships with coworkers is just as important as developing working relationships with the customers. And you need your coworkers' help in order to provide good customer service to your agency's customers. And everybody, need to back up. I jumped ahead, sorry. Everyone in your agency works for the client, either providing direct services or providing support to the people who provide direct services. So we want to treat all of our coworkers respectfully. We want to appreciate others' efforts and tell them. Don't be demanding. Always be polite. Say please and thank you often. It goes a really long way. And be sensitive to other people's responsibilities, workloads, and deadlines. You don't always know what might be going on behind the scenes. And make some exceptions and give some grace. So if a coworker snaps at you or cuts you short, remember, we all have bad days, so don't let that bad day interfere with the job you have to do. And remember, everybody makes mistakes. Stress the positive, avoid the negative. So when do we deliver customer service? You should be providing effective customer service at every opportunity. It helps minimize the number of difficult customer service situations you have to encounter. And we're going to talk about the difficult customer later, because I know you've all had at least one encounter of that. And remember that the dictionary defines the word customer as a person with whom one has dealings. So every time you pick up the phone, talk with somebody face to face, work on a case, assist a coworker, speak publicly, whether it's at a conference, school, transition fair, in our meetings, anywhere you're representing advocacy links, you're delivering customer service. And it's really critical to remember that. Every single one of us does customer service. So what are the hallmarks of good customer service? Customers want to be treated fairly, courteously, and respectfully. And qualities that promote effective customer service include courtesy, prompt attention, reliability, personal attention, knowledgeable staff, and empathy. Courtesy and respect are essential elements of exceptional customer service in any context. People judge the quality of the service they've received based upon how courteously and respectfully the service provider treated them. For us to provide exceptional and professional service, we have to recognize that there are two main components to our jobs. Tasks, that's our technical ability, our job knowledge, and expertise in case management. And this encompasses our ability to communicate, listen, and be responsive to a person's needs. It communicates the sincere desire to participate in a resolution to a person's problems and follow through until the outcome is reached. So this is just kind of an overview slide of some of the words that we associate with courtesy. So, you can see respect, etiquette, interaction, genuine, integrity, decorum, all things that we've talked about repeatedly over the years and that we as a company strive to put out there when we're interacting with people. So courtesy, a polite remark or respectful act. Excellence in manners or social contact. Polite behavior. Favor, help, or generosity. A courteous, respectful, or considerate act or expression. Consideration of others. Politeness. helpful. Prompt attention, no delay in response. And this one's really critical, especially within our world. Meeting our goal of responding within 24 hours. We should have a goal to respond that same day. It lets people know we care, that they matter. If you're not able to follow up immediately, at least acknowledge the person and their needs and let them know when you'll be following up, and then do it. You might have to do some research. You might have to look into something, and that's okay. Just give people time frames. Reliability. Being trustworthy or performing consistently well. You can be believed. You're dependable. You're consistent. You can count on someone or something. Think about how important that is in our day-to-day work and what we do, and how that fits into your job, and how much the people we work for, especially our individuals, their families and guardians, count on you to be dependable and consistent and someone they can count on. That becomes really critical. That personal attention, showing interest in another person, care centered around a particular person, customer focused, close attention, customized approach, one-on-one, emphasis. So what does that kind of lead you right into? When we talk about that personal attention, how does this link into what we're doing? Feel free to type in the chat box something that you think that we do as a case management company or as a case managers that fit that. Bueller. Some want only phone calls, some want text messages. What else is something that we do that fits right into this? PCISPs, exactly. Focus on hearing what people want during meetings. We've got several people with PCISPs, encouraging our individuals to facilitate their meetings. Those are ways that we can show that personal attention. The PCISP is the perfect example of that personal attention. This care centered around the individual. Knowledgeable, which is to be intelligent, well-informed, know your stuff and insight. Now, granted, we've all been brand new case managers, and we have some new case managers, and it's hard to be knowledgeable when you first start, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with going to get more information and letting somebody know, hey, I don't know for sure, let me go check on that and get back to you. That's a perfectly acceptable way to respond to someone, other than just saying, I don't know. If you don't know, make a commitment to find out and get back to somebody. But your goal should be to know your stuff. And that is exactly what I know we have in our case managers here. Is we have lots of really great, knowledgeable, well-informed case managers at Advocacy Links. Empathy. This is a huge one in case management. You need to understand another's feelings, share feelings of another, know where someone is coming from. Empathy is the capacity to understand or feel what someone is experiencing from within their frame of reference. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. As part of a job advocating for the individuals you serve, put yourself in their shoes, and think about, when they're asking for that alone time, and the fact that, this is somebody who maybe is never given that privacy or that time to be by themselves. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Take that time. Empathize with the people that you work with, and even your coworkers. I would encourage you to do that as well. A lot of people have stuff going on. They may not necessarily always share everything that's going on, but you can pick up on when people are feeling stressed, when people feel like they've got a lot on their plate or they're upset. Put yourself in their shoes, offer that empathy. It matters. So, how to be effective? Thank you. If the customer feels that he or she was treated fairly and respectfully, that customer might say thank you, even if the outcome isn't what they wanted. And that thank you is a sign that you provided high quality customer service. And saying thank you for somebody's time, assistance, knowledge, sharing of info, or anytime somebody does or provides something helpful goes a long way. Acknowledgement matters. It makes you feel good. And when somebody thanks you for something you've done, think about how you feel. So what are some words of how you feel when somebody thanks you when you've done a good job? How do you feel? Appreciated, successful, proud, happy, encouraged, connected. Any other words? Feel like I helped them, appreciate acknowledgement. Think about those meetings where you've left and the team has like acknowledged, you really made a difference and this was a huge help, and or a parent said, wow, I didn't know that. Thank you so much. Think about how great that makes you feel, how wonderful you leave that meeting feeling. I know when I've had it happen for me, I kind of walk out, almost on a little cloud. So think about then when you do the same to anyone you interact with, and when somebody does something for you. Thank you goes a long way. Going the extra mile. So, how as case managers can we go the extra mile for the people we serve? Anybody have some examples of things maybe we can do to go the extra mile? Can you think of anything that you've done? Somebody said they send birthday cards. That's awesome. I love that idea. Helping with Medicaid applications, getting Medicaid back, helping them fill out the applications, extra communication. What else can you do to go that extra mile for the people that you work for? Helping get home health supports. Doing reminders. Be willing to divert from our agenda and meetings if there are other things going on. Reach out regularly and listen. That's a big one. Assisting with Social Security issues and connecting them to attorneys. Doing RFAs, yes. Checking to see how someone is feeling after an illness. Become a Medicaid authorized rep. Being person focused. Being flexible if they need to change meeting times or dates. Be there when they need you. Really listening. Don't judge. Going back to that RFA, it's paying attention in your meetings and realizing, hey, somebody could really use this piece of equipment that maybe they don't even know about. So let's talk about that as a team, and I can help make that happen. And that makes a huge difference. Go that extra mile. So why go the extra mile? Feel good factor. You bring a sense of purposefulness to your working life. Who doesn't like to be praised when you've gone above and beyond? It helps you improve your knowledge of the people you serve. You get a better understanding of the problems that they are dealing with, and you understand them. You make them feel like they're the only person you serve. And you get a reputation for reliability. Don't make promises you can't keep or maintain. Fix your mistakes when you make them and seek feedback. It shows you have high standards. And you do impact others. Encourage coworkers to follow in your footsteps. Be a positive influence and make a difference. That positivity really does go a long way. Moods are contagious. So if you walk into a room and you're in a bad mood, you're pretty much going to start to see the demeanor of other people shift, you know, because now all of a sudden they're picking up on that vibe and they're picking up on what you're putting out there. If you walk into a room with a smile on your face, happy to be there, showing that, you're willing to do what you need to do, others are going to do the same. Okay? However, sometimes customer service and communication can be difficult. Some things that sometimes get in the way are language, attitude, yours and theirs, confidence, knowledge, jargon, or acronyms. Oh, that's a good point. Somebody said the vibe can be seen in Zoom calls, and we need to be conscious of that as well. Very true. Thank you, Michelle. So, how do we overcome some of those difficulties? Know your organization. Take responsibility. If you make a mistake, own it, apologize, seek resolution, and learn from it. Follow up. Even if you move that issue on to somebody else, there's nothing quite as helpful as somebody coming back to you saying, hey, I know I had talked to you about this and I had suggested you speak to so and so. Were you able to do that? Were they able to help you? And positive self talk. Remember, we're all human. So, self talk. Um, Negative self talk. Here's an example. This guardian is always such a pain. I'm sure they didn't like the PCISP I wrote. They're just going to complain about how the budget isn't enough to cover everything Joe needs. I'm not in the mood for this today. If they think they can yell at me, they can think again. So when I walk into a meeting and I've been thinking that, can you imagine what my demeanor is going to be? What kind of energy I'm putting out there? Versus this guardian really cares about Joe. It's important to them that he gets all the services he wants or needs. I know they like the PCISP because I sent it to them for review already and they didn't request any changes. I know they're not happy about the budget. Maybe I need to break it down for them to make sure they see how all the money is being used. So it's a little bit more of a positive spin. It's a little bit more of, let's go in there with a good attitude and we're going to figure out ways to help them see this. So can you think of some times where you could implement positive self-talk? When would be some good times for some positive self-talk? After receiving a CRR. I like that one. Before a meeting or a call. Absolutely. Repeated incident reports. Prepping for the upcoming week. Absolutely. Especially if you know that you've got some difficult teams that you're going to be meeting with that week. That positive self-talk can make a difference. So think about how that could change the tone and flow of your meetings or interactions and how it's different from negative self-talk. There's nothing wrong with, I'm sure you guys have all heard of affirmations, where you look in a mirror and you say nice things to yourself. And this is kind of the same thing, except you're prepping yourself to work with other people. So talk yourself up because you guys are all pretty fabulous. Listening matters. And I really like this quote. Listening, whether done by individuals or by companies and government, is a signal of respect. When people don't feel listened to, they don't feel respected. And when they don't feel respected, they feel anger and resentment. And this resentment is exacerbated if people think you're pretending to listen, but you aren't. Okay? So think about that for a moment. Have you had, and you don't have to type in the box, but I just want you to take a moment. Think about times in your life when you felt like somebody wasn't listening to you. And there's a difference between somebody listening to you and necessarily hearing you. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. But if you don't feel respected, think about times in your life when you've not felt respected, when you felt like somebody wasn't acknowledging what you were saying and how frustrating that is. So now flip that in terms of the individuals that we work with. Think about for how many of them that doesn't happen. There's many times where they don't get listened to, or what their wants or needs or interests are just kind of get brushed off by the people around them, or they get over talked. So listening is really, really critical in your job, and really paying attention and figuring out How do we make sure that we're listening to them, they're feeling respected, and maybe we can figure out some ways to make those things that they're trying to say actually happen. But listening is critical, and acknowledging that you're listening and that you're paying attention. So, and I just kind of talked about this. Sorry, I jumped ahead. Again, though, we all have those examples in our life. So just tell me though, how did it make you feel when you weren't listened to? Invisible. That's a really good word. How else? How did you react? What did you do as a result of not being listened to? Felt dismissed, ignored. Stopped sharing your opinion altogether, withdrew, felt unimportant. Check out when nobody's listening. You felt worthless, not important. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you for you guys interacting. I appreciate it. So, effective customer service can have that positive or negative influence. And again, it's on anyone who you have contact with. Paying attention to the quality of your customer service is like a checkup. It keeps your good service from becoming bad. And keep in mind, you can provide the best service in the world, but no matter what, some people may still not be happy with what you have done. There's just some people who are so mired down that you could do every single thing they asked, and then they will be upset because you didn't read their mind. So your goal is just to do the absolute best you can. So let's look at some different types of customer service. Let's look at customer service on the phone. We spend a lot of time on our phone, talking to individuals, guardians, families, especially providers. Being effective when on the phone is a unique skill. And phone etiquette can affect the caller's perception of your service positively and negatively. So, what do? Answer that phone promptly. So, if you're getting a phone call, you should always strive to answer the phone by the third ring if possible. Use a professional greeting. Use your company's name and your name. Speak distinctly and clearly. Give the caller time to be sure you are who they wanted to call. Your greeting is really important. It sets the stage for the rest of the call. Listeners tend to mirror the emotional state of the speaker. Give your caller a few seconds to adjust to the voice on the phone. Saying advocacy links, your name, and a greeting gives them some time to adjust to your tone. And somebody's got, just a couple more. Okay. So be prepared. When you're on the phone, always make sure you've got pen and paper handy. If you're like me and use pen and paper, or if you take notes on your computer, whatever, just have something handy so that you can write down information that might be important for you, especially because in our jobs, you're going to probably need to case note that phone call. So you want to make sure you gather the information you need. Jot down the person's name and then use it. People like to hear their names. Again, it makes them feel acknowledged. It makes them feel valued. Let the person know you're taking notes so that they know not to talk too fast. Use courtesy. Don't answer with a mouthful of food or while you're chewing gum. Make sure that you're in an environment where you can hear well and they can hear you clearly. Minimize background distractions. They shouldn't hear your music, your TV, or other household noises and sounds. I know during the pandemic, that's been a little more challenging as more people have had more people at home in their households. But our goal is to be as professional as we can and avoid those distractions as much as we can. Inflection matters. So 86% of your message comes from the tone of your voice. And sometimes you're not even aware of how your inflection has changed. So think about, how you may come across to somebody. 14% is grasped by the words you use. So how you give a message matters. So it's really important to pay attention to that inflection and make sure that you're using an upbeat, positive tone. Okay. So how to improve your tone or inflection? This sounds really kind of odd, but smile. You really can hear a smile through the phone. So if somebody is smiling, their inflection changes. Breathe. Slow, deep breaths. It's going to help relax your vocal cords. It brings your pitch down and creates a calmer tone of voice. And stress words. This can change the feeling of what is being said and exaggerate your tone. I'm sure all of you at some point have heard it's called the customer service voice, and we all have one. You don't want to sound fake, so don't take it too far. But at the same time, you want to sound positive, you want to sound happy, you want to sound pleasant, you want to sound glad to be talking to them. Let me go back here. Don't rush calls. Make your voice, again, pleasant and eager. A caller should be the sole focus of your attention. If you have a monotone and flat voice, it says I'm bored and I have absolutely no interest in what you're talking about. Slow speed and low pitch communicate a message of I'm bored and have absolutely no interest in what you're talking about. High pitched voice and emphatic voice says I'm enthusiastic about this subject. Abrupt speed and very loud tone says I'm angry and I'm not open to input. High pitch combined with drawn out speed conveys I don't believe what I'm hearing. Okay. And there's some differences in that face-to-face contact versus a telephone call. When you have a phone call, it's the element of surprise. You don't necessarily have time to review a file or notes before taking a call. And it's important to pay attention. And it's easier to be distracted by everything else when you're on a call. So, how do we deal with difficult customers? First of all, we need to listen, empathize. It's going to help you connect by putting yourself in your customer's shoes. Paraphrase what they say. Shows you understand the issue. Not necessarily that you agree, but that you understand. And that's a really good distinction to have. Stick to what you know as a company. That advocacy links can or can't do. Don't make promises you really can't keep. Respond professionally. Recognize what else might be going on. So don't take the anger personally. As a professional, you have to recognize customers might have legitimate concerns buried somewhere in their anger and venting. They might be overreacting, but you need to be objective, assess the problem, and focus on solutions. So whenever possible, use the customer's name. Again, it personalizes that conversation and it makes it harder for them to attack you. Keep your manner friendly. Show them respect, even in the face of disrespect. And I know that can be very difficult, but you need to. Demonstrate no reaction in the face of difficult behavior. If this is happening face to face, move closer to the customer. You don't need to be right in their face, but you lean forward a little bit. Maintain eye contact. Listen for the unspoken messages. Focus on subtleties in a caller's voice or in an individual's voice, that inflection, pacing, the overall tension level. Customers might act angry, upset, demanding, impatient, abusive, and threatening for any number of reasons. And these behaviors sometimes are the result of one or more negative feelings that have been roused in the situation. So again, they might be feeling, I'm frustrated, I'm not important, I'm incompetent, I'm powerless and a victim, I'm stupid, I'm guilty. Okay? So again, those are things that you got to think about. And sometimes difficult customers aren't difficult because they're angry or upset. It can be sometimes other issues at work. I feel like my slides are out of order for some reason. I apologize, you guys. Be patient and concentrate. Remember, the customer is just as frustrated as you are. You'll better be able to understand what they're saying if you're concentrating. Again, speak slowly and distinctly. Be extra courteous. Avoid using slang or industry jargon. Use plain, simple English. Don't use terms or phrases that only add to the confusion. Don't shout. Speaking loudly isn't going to help. Okay? It's only going to cause more anxiety. And if you speak loud, then they speak loud. And listen carefully for keywords and phrases, but don't focus on trying to listen to every word. So, and sometimes one of the issues you can have is somebody's limited ability to speak English. So again, that's when we want to use that translator that we have available through Luna and avoiding that jargon and slang. Okay. So ramblers. Everybody loves an audience. And because it's kind of rare to find somebody who's going to listen, some people will monopolize another's time on the telephone as a break from their hectic day or just to combat loneliness. Most of these people don't realize how they're inconveniencing you. So you need strategies to deal with the rambling caller. So don't think silence or giving short answers is going to work, assuming that the caller is going to get the hint. On the phone, silence is like a vacuum and it demands to be filled. If you don't respond, they are just going to keep talking. Do ask questions. Don't be afraid to interrupt the rambler with a question. They won't be offended as long as you appear interested in their response. And use their responses to begin moving toward a conclusion. It is okay to let a person know that you have another commitment, such as a meeting, and you can offer to call back at another time. But if you do this, you need to follow through. Argumentative customers. There's some people who just thrive on arguments and might disagree with anything you say or offer. Don't argue back. So speak softly. If you speak loudly, they have to speak loudly to be heard over you, and it just escalates. If you speak softly, they have to be quiet in order to hear you. Seek that opinion. Argumentative people like to feel they're in control. If you try to rob them of their control, they're just going to get more argumentative. If you give them some control by asking a question, they're liable to ease up. Take a break. If you allow yourself to be drawn into an argument and become angry, excuse yourself briefly, count to 10, get a drink of water, allow yourself a minute or two to regain your composure. And sometimes that might mean too that you need to say, this call, we're not really getting anywhere right now. Can I call you back later? And then come back to the conversation and concentrate on the points of the argument and list them so you both can see and deal with the points one at a time, and then take notes on them and number each problem so that it can be addressed. That can be very helpful when you're in meetings with a team where there's a lot of disagreement and a lot of conversation going on and no one is happy. So taking notes to say, okay, this is, Bob's argument, and here's the points related to that. Here's Sue's, and then come back and address them one at a time. Verbally abusive customers. That can be an attempt to intimidate you. And your most powerful position in this is to stick to the fundamental issues and remain calm. And I know that's really, really hard when somebody is being very verbally abusive to you. Usually, though, they're not angry at you. It usually has nothing to do with you as a person, but maybe at the agency, a situation, a policy, the state, something else completely unrelated. You just happen to be the unfortunate person who's going to take the brunt of it. And again, you're going to want to talk quietly so that they have to be quiet to hear you. And talk at a normal pace. If you start speeding up the way you talk, it only makes matters worse. And be direct. If they're using abusive language or makes threats, be direct and address them by name and say, Mr. Smith, I understand that you're upset, but please don't use that language with me or threaten me. It's okay to do that because it's not okay for somebody to be abusing you. Let the customer know the consequences calmly and objectively. When you use this language, it makes it impossible for me or anyone to assist you. We'll have to reschedule your appointment or postpone the resolution of this problem until we can talk about it rationally. So again, it gives everybody that break and time to cool off and to think about the situation and to come back together at a time when things can be discussed in a more calm manner. It is okay to do those things. Don't feel like you have to sit and take somebody's abuse because you don't. That's not your job to be abused. So threatening customers. So try to avoid getting into a discussion of the threat. Lead the conversation back to the fundamental issues in dispute. Remind them that you are equally interested in finding an equitable solution. Offer to get a third party involved who can evaluate the problem and options. That's where using the waiver ombudsman can be really beneficial because he is that objective third party and can come in and give you his observations and thoughts. And that can be a very helpful tool when you're in a situation like this. Admit somebody else might have another option that maybe the two of you haven't come up with. Maybe you need to get in somebody else from your company or from a provider company and just have them be there to kind of bounce things off of. So you also need to evaluate a customer's ability to make good on a threat and decide what to do from there. Don't overreact, but there might be occasions when you fear deep down for your safety. You should be always looking for those signs of drug or alcohol use. They can impair somebody's ability to be rational and might necessitate taking steps to ensure your own personal safety. Make sure they understand the repercussions. Before those threats escalate, calmly advise them of the repercussion of the threats, of the fact that threats are taken seriously and treated seriously, and suggest they might want to reconsider what they're saying. Because if you're being threatened, I would expect that you're going to come back to your supervisor and let them know what's going on so that we can figure out what needs to be done. And you also terminate it. Terminate the interaction. If they're going to continue the threats, stop it. Document the information and warn and alert the appropriate person, your supervisor. If you're in a building, you might want to let especially a provider agency, let the receptionist know, make sure the provider agency is taking it seriously. And if necessary, contact the police. Because again, we don't expect you to be threatened and to just take it. That is not okay. Hostile or angry customers. So again, it's that situation. So people usually exhibit negative behaviors because they're afraid of loss or being hurt. You know, they often have misdirected aggression, and you need to be able to effectively diffuse that anger. So basically, the best way to do that is to listen. And only when people feel that they've been heard are they going to be ready to hear what we have to say. And again, it's because when people are upset, they're not being rational and they can't begin to problem solve. They need to wait until their hostility peaks and begins to cool. So you can kind of see on the chart there, you've got the rational behavior as your baseline, and then you see the bell curve where it's taking off. When it reaches its zenith, it's slowing down. You're going to provide supportive comments like, I can tell you've been through a lot, and that can help to cool that customer down so that they become rational again and they can begin to problem solve. If you try to help solve the problem before the customer starts coming back down the curve, you might end up frustrating the customer and yourself. So you can see that cool down is where we start to see things get into a more rational zone. So again, we want to tell people to try not to resist, refute, argue, defend. It's only going to inflame the emotions of the customer. So don't take that anger personally. Don't blame the customer. Avoid blame. Don't dominate the conversation. Do detach yourself from that customer's hostility. Again, 9 times out of 10, it's not about you. There will be times perhaps where it is, but generally it's not. You just happen to be that target. Remain professional and don't be defensive. Maintain control of yourself and the situation by viewing it objectively. Don't listen to the personal attacks or untruths. Don't let it get to you, in other words. And I know sometimes that's really, really hard to do. And it can be very difficult when you're in those situations to keep your cool because the heart rate starts going and the adrenaline starts going. And we've all had those types of meetings or conversations where you can just feel everything amping up. Do your best to bring yourself back down. Start deep breathing and listen. Empathize as much as you can. You know, apologize is not necessarily that you're sorry for everything in the world, but you can apologize that whatever's happening is upsetting them. Provide that, look at the services that we can do, and then summarize what's going on. So what I hear you saying is, and summarize it so that they know you've heard them. So again, listening to somebody, I can listen all day, but when I summarize what they've told me, it shows I've heard them. And that's really, really important when you've been heard. It makes people feel you care and you're going to diffuse that situation. But again, if you're in a situation where they're just not coming down, you may need to terminate the interaction. And again, document it and let your supervisor know. And I think that's a really critical piece. If you're ever in a situation, it's okay to let your supervisor know about it. We want to know if you're not being treated appropriately. And sometimes we have to say no. As case managers, we know the limits of our budgets, and so we have to say no a lot. Families want things that we just can't give them. They want equipment that the waiver is not going to pay for. We can say no, but if we do it right, we can still get a thank you for our services. So you need to explain why it can't be done. Give details, but concentrate on the positive. Don't dwell on the negative. Instead of saying, I can't help you, Say, we can't do that, but we can do this. Offer those alternatives or try to find alternatives. You might have to have a conversation about, well, okay, we don't have the funding to do that, but maybe there's some alternate funding out there. What can we look at? Don't quote policy. Don't say, because it's the law. Give them some background and some explanation as much as you can. And if you aren't sure, let them know you'll find out and you'll get back to them. Don't be patronizing and don't talk down to them. Keep comments on a professional adult level. Don't use the phrase, of course. Like, here's an example. Of course you don't understand. You didn't read my letter. It sounds patronizing and sarcastic. You know, think about times in your life where you've had somebody do that to you. And again, don't just say no or you have to. Try to help them find solutions to the problem. For example, I apologize for not being able to find the form and having to ask you to fill it out again. Would it be easier for you to come in and do it, or should I drop it into the mail for you? Okay. Saying no with grace, if you will get you much further than just a hard no. So safety matters. And this is something that I really, really want to stress with all of you, because I think this is really critical in our positions, because I know some of you have had some difficult situations. If you are going to be meeting with somebody and you're concerned that it could be angry, there could be threats, there's a history of it, or it makes you feel unsafe, first of all, make sure your supervisor knows about the situation. You can ask your supervisor to attend a meeting with you. Again, sometimes having that objective third party there is helpful. And also just having that third party there, sometimes someone that the individual doesn't know can diffuse a situation. When you're the case manager, people get very comfortable with you. And so sometimes they feel they can talk to you in ways they probably wouldn't if they didn't know you from however many meetings you've held over the years with them. Bringing that supervisor in, they're more likely to behave. If you're going to be attending a difficult meeting and you're a little concerned, make sure your supervisor knows the date, time, and location of the meeting. Hold meetings in public places or at providers whenever possible. If you've got a situation that you're not comfortable with, or you're working with a family or an individual that you don't feel comfortable meeting at their home. Obviously, we are required to do at least one home visit per year for individuals. But you can always ask somebody to go with you. Don't meet with a person alone. Yeah, make sure somebody goes with you. Always be aware of an escape route in your surroundings. Pay attention to those things. Your safety is critical for us. And don't hesitate to ask for help. We never, ever want to put you guys in dangerous situations. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't feel comfortable. We're here to provide support and to help you however we can in those situations and to make sure that you feel comfortable. So don't put yourself in situations that aren't. So finally, providing good customer service is obviously going to give you a positive experience for everybody. It's going to be more positive for you. It's going to be positive for the people you're interacting with. It's just overall going to be better. And there really is no magic or secret to providing good customer service. It really is all about that listening, empathy, and being responsive. And ultimately, it's the golden rule. You know, treat other people the way you want to be treated. And you'll get it back, hopefully. That's our ultimate situation, is that you're going to treat people the way you want to be treated, and they're going to do the same for you. So this came from a training that was used by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services for their Office of Child Support Enforcement. So then questions. Anyone have any questions? Okay. All righty. Then, oh, something did come up. Well, thank you. Um, so again, thank you all for joining us today. And we will go ahead and move over to the staff portion. Thank you all.